Hello, everyone. We are here at Parker's POV Show. As I promised you, we're going to bring you real talk about real issues and real solutions. And what better way to kick that off today than my guest? We're here with Miss Rita Conerly. Yes, the Rita Conerly that's out here every day, all times of day and night, doing everything for the community. And we appreciate you so much. How are you doing, Miss Rita?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Good, good. You know what? I heard some good news. I heard there was an amazing person that was running for office. Tell us what's going on.
That's me. No, so yeah, that is correct. I have decided to run for Champaign Township Supervisor, which primary elections are in February 23rd to be exact. So I am expecting our young folks, our old folks, in between folks, everyone to get out and support me as I, campaign in my election for that seat. So I decided to run because I felt it was important to not only be an advocate in the street and always being so on the ground, but I
Yes,
thought it was necessary also to try to make a change by being in the seats that
mm,
offer the opportunity to do that.
you're right about that because in the end, you're in the seats that help make the decisions that create change, right?
Correct.
And it's so important for us to have people in those seats that really understand the perspective of the community, the needs of the community, and the delivery of services to the community. And
Absolutely.
I know that you have a lot of initiatives that you're working on now, but what are some of the things that you're hoping to do in your new position for the community?
Well, there is so much that needs to be done. And moreover, in the position as township supervisor, you really do cater to some of the most vulnerable populations of people, some of the people who are without housing or temporary housing, or maybe in between housing, or some, people who have fallen on hard times. So it's my hopes that in that position, I can expand upon the outreach to people who may have a need, because oftentimes it's very hard to ask. So I want to kind of prevent the barrier of people feeling, the pride, and sometimes not knowing where to go. I want to be able to make the township more visible to people who may need, something that will hold them over while they have fallen on hard times. So,
You're right about that. It's
yeah.
hard for people to ask for help, and you're right. They often don't know where to go. A lot of times, these are people that are in new life events. They just are first, apartment and ran into a situation. New mothers that have just ran into a situation, recently victimized, and it had been thrust into a situation. And so whenever it's something new, just like anything, you often don't know where to turn, who to ask, what's appropriate to ask for. I can remember myself being in hard times and really not knowing, what services are actually out there.
Mhm.
And it's very disappointing when you're limited on your resources. You don't have a car, you caught the bus all the way across town, and then you get somewhere and they say, well, we're full. Well, we can't help you. And then not really having anywhere else to go beyond that, you kind of feel defeated.
Well, I mean, and moreover, you think about, people's limited mobility. And so why, are people who are in need always the ones who have to go to a place to
Mhm.
receive support? I think that there needs to be a more open door policy. There needs to be more, again, outreach or an actual direct caseworker who is in the, who are in direct neighborhoods that have been identified as vulnerable, or as lower income. I'd like to say that there, just us at a disadvantage. But we need to have, people in the communities directly engaging. Moreover, I think it would be more appropriate to have people in positions, such as township supervisors who are relatable to the people who utilize the services, who look like the people who are using the services and asking for help. It just makes it more comfortable, and it kind of breaks the complexes, the negative ones that are associated with asking for assistance.
Mhm. Yes, Miss Rita. You know what? They got the right one now. So excited to see you there. Rita, you are, if folks don't know you, they've got to know more about you. Tell us about your family, your career before now. We know you're going to do wonderful things.
So, well, just a little bit about me. I am native to Champaign, born and raised. My mother is actually Hispanic. She is of Mexican background. She was born in Mexico. She came to America at a very young age. She met my father, who is African American, in El Paso, Texas. Together they came to Champaign to raise their family. I have three other older siblings, and they are older by a large gap. So they're 10, 11, and 12 years older than me. So I had a lot of experience with, kind of exposure to different things at a young age. So in addition to all of that, my father was a mechanic. He was a neighborhood mechanic in
He
the
was
garden.
our mechanic, our mechanic, everybody's mechanic.
A well-known mechanic, here in Champaign. And so with that brought a lot of people to my house because he worked out of his garage. So I just became familiar with a lot of people here in Champaign-Urbana because not only was he a mechanic, he also was a mentor. He was a father figure. He just, brought a positive spirit and light to what a Black male was in the household.
Yes.
And I would say the epitome of a father, so
Yes.
to some, he was the best mechanic. To me, he was the best father. And
Yes.
I'm a dad's girl. So,
Mhm.
so through him and with my mom being, again, Latina, very hard worker,
Mhm.
she was a nurse. She has been a nurse for nearly 40 years, over 40 years, excuse me.
Mhm.
And so just seeing her hard work and them two together, just showing what family looks like, of course, there are hard times, but being familiar with not only Champaign, but then just the layout of the whole land and just
Mhm.
always living here my entire life. My mother still lives in the house that I was born and raised in. I still happen to live in the community that I was raised in, which is the Garden Hills neighborhood community.
My neighborhood.
Yep. And
Oh,
so,
I remember those times.
yeah.
And you're right. Many folks really looked up to your dad as someone in the community that was always with his family, always supportive, and would make sure them kids get out the street and do the right thing. Like he always had a good word for anybody and a good heart.
That's right. I mean, and just always very open. He
Yes,
would fix your bike if you needed to. He would
yes,
actually show you how to fix your car. I mean, not me, because I never took the opportunity to sit and learn. I'm just like, fix it for me.
yes.
But to anyone who was willing to learn, he was willing to teach.
Yes.
And so just those nurturing, qualities of a man that a lot of households kind of lack. And
Mhm.
so just having that, I think, and seeing again, the both of my parents work hard to raise their family really instilled some great morals and principles in me. So now I currently am a mother. I have actually 8 children who range between the age of 3 and 19.
This is your community.
That's right, and so, with having that many children, it's very important for me to be active and engaged and a part of their lives and their upbringing. And so that requires me to be their advocate. And so I have for a very long time been an advocate at Head Start here in Champaign, Urbana. I've actually gone to Washington, D.C. to speak, there as it relates to funding and budgets, how important that is. And so just always using my voice to make sure that my children have a quality of not only life, but education, health, and just all the things that in comfort, a good life, or the best quality of life for them as possible. So, kind of fast forward, George Floyd happened. And as a mother, I just felt it was my moral obligation that he was calling out for a mother. And with having having so many children and so many little ones who call me mom, it was important that I did something, if not only for them, for everyone in my community who lacked maybe that same support.
Yes, you are right. And as a mother, you are leading the charge to help make our community better for not just your children, but all children.
That's right.
Rita, you guys have this, what is it? It's an open support for the community. Tell us about the little, what do we call these?
The little pop-up pantries.
Pop-up pantry.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that was actually an initiative created by Justin Hendricks with his organization called Hitting Homeboy. So one of his members, Marshall Alston, he just decided that food insecurity should not be a thing, and that if there was nothing that we could do, the least we could is provide food to the vulnerable populations of people who we actually had seen while we were protesting. So it actually started as something that was small. It was a table set up with just canned goods and things that we could find, just some of the demonstrators who gathered with us around at Rogue Barbershop. I don't know if you guys recall, but back in June, July, there was a big protest, 2-week-long protest at Rogue Barbershop. And that's kind of where we identified, because we were in the streets daily, that food insecurity was a real thing. And, just his sincerity with, hey, I'm going to bring up a table and here's some food from my own cabinet. Just the domino effect of how willingness the community, was so quick to say, hey, I've got some things too, or hey, let me put a message out to see if we can gather some things. And it just evolved into this beautiful thing where even while we were there, we hosted an event where we created toiletry packs and just kind of taped them around the poles downtown. We went down to CU Home and we found that we donated some to that organization, but then in that time identified, hey, what do you guys like? And they were like, well, we like chips. And from that created a chip in fundraiser where people donated either chips or just chipped in a monetary donation.
So I think I have to send a cash out to you.
So that we could donate what they wanted.
It was something, it was inspiring. I just felt like the need. I'm like, let me just send a cash out to this. This is
That's
awesome.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and it's just those small acts of kindness and seeing how the community comes together. And when we really do work together as a community, how strong we can be. And it's really important that we are inclusive and thinking about the less vulnerable population or thinking about people who are not in as a fortunate position as you are. I just think it's important that we're considerate of those who just do not have what we have. One of the things that I kind of live by and I always say is it could be worse.
Yes.
And that is for anybody, it could be worse. And so if we kind of live by that, apply that and say, but it could be better too. So just doing our small parts to do that, to ensure the betterment of our community as a whole.
Amen. Love thy neighbor.
Yep.
You know what, Rita, it has been just a pleasure connecting with you. I couldn't imagine this being the last time we talk. We're going to have to follow up with you soon. Now, February is the big election. Tell us again the date and all that.
So yeah, just a little bit more. Township Supervisor primary elections are February 23rd, 2021. You can also register for a ballot by mail, and you can vote by mail. I do plan here also here in the future to try to do a little education on, voters registration and getting folks registered to vote. Along with that, I did advise that my mother is Latina. She is a Spanish speaking citizen. So she is going to provide support in making sure that we are getting our Latina population in and showing them how they can request their ballot by mail and how to complete a ballot and submitting that. So I think it's always, again, important that we are considering the other, the population at large. And that's people who don't look like you, people who don't come from the same backgrounds as you do, people whose life circumstances may not have been the best for them, but we can make it, again, a little bit better for them.
Yes.
So February 23rd are the primary elections. I'm really, really, really going to ask people to vote for me because I think, if nothing else, I can relate to the population of people who are receiving the service of the township office. And I look to broaden those services and do more outreach so that we can reach a greater population of people who may just not know that that is there.
Yes. Well, you know that we're here, Unity in Action Magazine. We got your back. Let us know anything, any events. When you get your recording, let us know as well. We'd love to help get things out to the Spanish speaking community.
Thank you.
No, thank you. We appreciate you for your service, and thank you so much for being a guest today on Parker's POV Show. As you know, because you live in the wonderful city of Champaign, Urbana, Illinois, you now have earned a free meal at Neal Street Blues, just as a way to say thank you so much for taking the time out to interview with us today.
Thank you.
Rita, well, that is awesome, and I appreciate everything you do for the community again. I would like to give a chance for our audience if they have any questions or anything. Who's in our audience? Who's there? And tell us a little about yourself, and feel free to ask a question to Miss Rita.
I can go first. Sulema Herrera. I'm currently editorial assistant of Unity Action Magazine. I am Mexican American, so I really appreciate the way you're reaching out to the Spanish speaking community, though especially in light of voter suppression and misinformation and not being able to reach those populations, which I find is really awesome. And yeah, I really appreciate it in terms of questions. Well, that was going to be one of my questions, was about how you're going to be able to reach out, and just hearing from what you're saying, how you're having your mom help you and everything, I think is good. For me, my Spanish is not up to par. I don't know about yours or how you grew up, but I think it's really important to learn that and to spread that information well. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that. And just to, kind of rewind back and let you know about my upbringing. So again, there's a decade gap between my older siblings and myself. So they grew up learning Spanish and hearing it in the household, because there was also, they moved a lot more, and they were kind of back and forth between Texas, more of the Southwest America. So Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California. And so the exposure because of their environment. So my mom spoke Spanish in the household, with them. And then you think 10 years passes, early 80s, they're now in, Champaign, Illinois, my dad, my mom, they were like, no more Spanish. And it was just one of those things where it kind of evolved where English, where, it kind of, people don't understand the importance of bilingual and learning dual language. And they didn't understand how important having children who were Afro-Latina, if she would have instilled in us early and spoke and exposed us to Spanish early, how much more we would be able to help, our community. So it kind of phased out during my generation. And then now you see it where it's a thing again. Mm-hmm. So And I know too, just from growing up in a household where I had a Latina mother and an African-American father, how sometimes just kind of submissive the Latina population can be. And it could be just because of the fear, you know, of deportation or the fear of misinformation. And so I wanted to be certain to use my voice with my mother's assistance, which I'm so, you know, grateful to have a support of not only family, but of network of friends and community, to be inclusive of that Latina population of people, because we can see the population in Champaign-Urbana alone is growing. And I want to make sure that they know too, you know, services are available for you and you don't have to be afraid. And so by being inclusive, by being diverse, you know, I think it kind of breaks that barrier of not feeling uncomfortable or feeling uncomfortable. So yeah, I thank you for, you know, reminding the community that there is a Latina population and that being inclusive is important.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're right. That's a very good point of how the generational gap there and that disinformation seeping out into the community, and how beneficial it would be to have the dual language. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Thank you. Would anybody else in the audience like to share?
Hi, I'm the design intern for Unity in Action magazine. My name's Joanna Verne. And I think I've definitely seen your name come up on Twitter and like activism, like kind of shout outs and link sharing. And you definitely have my vote. I'm here for more like locals in the community that are trying to challenge the status quo and how things are and actually speak for the people. I was wondering if you could talk a little more about maybe your plans for if or when you're elected township supervisor, because for me, I know politics, or I like politics, but I'm just wondering like what that position is, because I don't even know what you would do in that position. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so currently, to my understanding, pretty much cater to and servicing the poorest and most vulnerable population of people, and that's what the website says. So one thing I want to do is change some of the way in which we use our language. To reference people as poorest and most vulnerable, there's already that insecurity coming in to receive help, because I don't want to be seen as the poorest, most vulnerable, when I may have just fallen on hard times, or I may just need a helping hand, and not a handout, but a hand up. So, you know, I have so many ideas as it relates to what I want to do. I feel, you know, somewhat hesitant revealing everything that I want to do, you know, because I'm not there yet. But just kind of in a broad overview of what I want to do, again, I want to outreach for sure. I definitely want to get out into the communities that have been identified already, excuse me, already as those who are utilizing the township services. So some of the things that they provide are rental assistance. So that's one thing that the office does currently. The other thing that they offer is general assistance, which is more of a monthly stipend support, which is $304, I believe, per month to those who qualify. So I think another thing that we can do, instead of just offering that $300 stipend, is we can offer financial education, financial literacy, because I think it's important, instead of just giving, you know, and I understand 300 is not much, but there is a way that we can teach people how to save, you know, how to prioritize expenses. Again, just that education around money, because we know that we live in a capitalistic society where, while money doesn't, you know, make things, it doesn't change the emotion or make people happy, it's access. And so I think it's important to, again, educate people around financial literacy. The other thing I think we need to address are services that cater to more services that cater to domestic violence victims, survivors. There is the Courage Connection. I know that there is some partnership there with them, but they're just one entity, and the statistics I think are larger than what they can serve. And as a survivor myself, which I didn't speak on, I can speak to my need, and there just not being resources available. So I'd like to see about expanding upon, resources for victim survivors. In addition to that, I'd like to see more support services for teenagers who have been identified as at risk, and runaways. There's just no services for our teen runaways. And I don't know if you guys know, there's no 24-hour shelter access either. So there's just some things that I have been thinking, because the budget right now, I believe, is $650,000 annually. And I think that there's so much more that can be done with those fundings. And if you don't know life experiences because you've never had those experiences, then it's hard to make the recommendation on how or what we can do to try to make life better for people who have, hardships.
My goodness, Rita, you just hit it on the nail, and I echo and totally agree and understand. I'm a survivor myself of domestic violence, and a lot of people don't understand when you have children the urgency and the need, and it's nothing negotiable when it comes to your safety and well-being. And it's nothing you can wait on when you're talking about feeding and sheltering your child. There's some non-negotiables that as a society we have to stop looking at as socialism or not. Those tags and those names are hurting people. It's hurting the progress of our nation. It crosses all color lines, it crosses all nationalities, and we just can't afford to continue to allow the suffering, because when one person suffers in our community, our entire community suffers. I thank you so much again. I want us to be a support. Unity in Action Magazine wants to work with folks, agencies, programs, but to help get support around your initiatives. So when the day comes and you need us, you call us, and we would love to help bring the sources together to support any initiatives that you have. 650,000 is not enough, and our community can do more. We can, and to direct our actions towards specific initiatives, even just quarterly or once a month, every little bit helps. Rita, thank you so much again for opening our eyes and the community eyes to ways that we can work together to put unity into action. Thank you so much again for joining our show. And this won't be the last. We'll see you real soon.